स्वागत करते हैं जी एक बार फिर आप सब ਦਾ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਾਥ ਦੇਣਗੇ ਡਾਇਲਨ ਕਰੂਗਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਅਚੀਵਿੰਗ ਫॉर ਡੈਲਟਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਲੇਟ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਮਿਊਨਿਸਪਲ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਜੋ ਡੈਲਟਾ 'ਚ ਹੋ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਹਨ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਸੋ ਆਓ ਜਿਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਵਾਉਣੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਹਨ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਲਾਨਸ ਕੀ ਇਹ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਗੇ Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So tell a little bit about yourself. What is your background and what prompted you to jump into this race?
For sure. Well, today I work for Ian Payton, who's the MLA for Delta South, but I've worked previously with the provincial and the federal governments.
Right.
One thing that was really important for George Harvey, who's our mayoral candidate for Achieving for Delta, was to find some representatives of a younger generation to get on the team for Delta.
Right.
In Delta today, we have no current councillors under the age of 50, and in Greater Vancouver, there's 155 municipal councillors in Greater Vancouver, only 13 under the age of 40.
Right.
So I represent the largest growing demographic in Delta and across the Lower Mainland, and was really honoured that George asked me to be on the team.
That's wonderful. When you talk about the youth not taking interest, it's quite interesting because the youth are not interested in politics as such. So what is your background? How did you get involved into politics? And as you said, you've been working with the N pattern. What are the kind of issues which you have been dealing with in Delta?
Absolutely. So a couple of things to touch on there. First of all, you're right, with youth, it's really tough to get them involved, as we've seen in the last couple of elections, but it's a vicious cycle. You elect politicians who don't take issues of young people and young families as a priority, and in turn young people say, well, why would I be interested in voting if no one's considering any of my issues? So it gets to become a bit of a vicious cycle in that sense, which we need to break. In terms of my own background, I'm a bit of a weird exception. I've always been a bit of a politics nerd. I grew up with a passion. I studied political science at the University of Ottawa. But for me, the reason that I'm really passionate about getting involved is keeping young families in Delta.
Right.
I feel like we need people with the perspective of living through the housing affordability crisis that we're having in the Lower Mainland, of taking public transit, seeing the gaps in public transit.
Right.
Those are issues that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, and that I think I can bring to the table to represent for the team.
And as far as the youth issues are concerned, because as you very rightly said, generally they are neglected. It's only during the elections that they are in the forefront, but afterwards, generally, nothing is talked about. So how do you assure, especially the youth, of course, the other citizens of Delta also, who are of the voting age, that you will do what you say? Because again, being a politician, a lot of people don't have much faith in the politicians, because when the elections are there, they say something, but once the elections are gone, things change. So how do you assure, and especially as a youth, what would you do that why should the people vote for you?
To get youth involved in politics and to address issues that are relevant to young people in our community, we need to elect young people.
Right.
We need to make sure that our council is reflective of the community that we live in. Right? This is, as I said, the largest growing segment of our population across the region, and the reason that you want to elect young people is because it's a vested interest for me as a young person who's I'm getting married in August, and I'm going to be raising a family in our community, and I want my young family to have the same opportunities that my parents and grandparents did. Right? So I have a vested interest in fulfilling my promises for our generation.
Right. And now you must be meeting people, of course, as representing, working with the N pattern, things were different, but now on your own you have jumped into this arena. So when you're meeting the people, what major issues are coming forward from the population as large?
The biggest issue that I hear when I talk to people my age and older and across the spectrum, young families are leaving our community.
Right.
People that I went to school with and grew up with are moving out to the Fraser Valley, Chilliwack, even further out, because there aren't enough housing options for young families in our community. Far and large, when I'm knocking on doors, when I'm talking to people in our community, that's the first thing that I hear. The second issue that I hear is that access to public transit in Delta is inadequate.
Right.
And of course, that's not governed by Delta, that's governed by TransLink and Metro Vancouver. But we need to make sure that we elect councillors who have taken transit for a living, who understand where the gaps are,
right,
and who can advocate for it.
Right.
Just to give you a quick sense of where Delta is, whenever you go on the Canada Line or the SkyTrain or anything like that, you look on the map of transit in our community, Delta is where the index is.
Right.
They place the index over the city of Delta. So we need to make sure that we quite literally get Delta on the map when it comes to public transit.
So you will raise a voice for especially this particular issue as far as transit concerned, that Delta also needs to be included.
Absolutely.
Now that elections are in October, there's still some time, and then in August you're going to be busy in marriage. You are meeting the people, as you said, some of the issues which they're coming forward. But along with that, the demographics are also changing now. And Delta is segregated into three different parts, basically. So every area has their own issues or challenges. But of course, achievements also. As a community, what are you finding? Public safety is one major issue, which one of your council members who is coming forward, and Cal talked about being a police officer, what perspective he has as far as policing is concerned. So keeping this demographic view in mind, what do you feel? How will you involve the entire community for the progress of Delta?
Absolutely. Well, one initiative that George Harvey was really passionate about for our team was making sure that, North Delta, 65% of Delta's population is in North Delta.
Right.
Right? And that's where the majority of the tax base comes from. And as such, we need to make sure that we have a council that's accessible to all of Delta.
Right.
Not just one area. So our team is committed to making sure that we have 50% of our council meetings in North Delta
Right.
and 50% in South, using the new Performing Arts Center in North Delta. So that's really important.
Right.
And I certainly, you see the cynicism sometimes in politics of certain people trying to pit one segment of a community against the other,
Right.
Which I think is a very cynical game to play, and I don't believe in. I think you're elected as a councillor to represent all of Delta,
Absolutely.
whether it's Ladner or Tawasin or North Delta or young people or old people, and we can't be pitting one side of the community against the other. We see that in other jurisdictions,
Right.
And it's not what we need for
Wonderful.
our city.
That's a great approach, what you are thinking of adopting, and we hope you continue on this path. Congratulations and best wishes. And of course, elections are far away. We'll have you here again, loaded with some major questions. This is just an introduction to the community. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the chance to speak with
Welcome.
you.